Hello and welcome to this tutorial where I'm going to talk about how we can integrate checkpoints into our game. So you may have already played around with the checkpoint system, which is available in the obstacle course starter template. But what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be looking at a game, maybe an adventure game or a game where you want your players to be able to save their progress as they're going along. And you want them to be able to use checkpoints to respawn essentially if they die after that point. And we're going to do that from scratch. So, well, sort of from scratch. We're going to use packages. We're going to use a bit of scripting. So you're going to need to use advanced mode. But essentially, what we've got is a game, if you can call it that. Let's use this default start point. It's a game, and you can run along this treacherous mountain path. You can die. At the moment, I'm being respawned by default back at the start location. So what I want to do is I want to be able to walk onto this checkpoint and that be where I respawn. But if I die now, even after touching that checkpoint, I still respawn at the beginning. So that's the logic that I'm trying to figure out and I want to fix in my game. So let's look at how we do that. I approach that. So the first thing is there is some really useful packages that already exist to help us in our quest to create checkpoints. So head over to the community tab and check the Crayta packages and then look for the AutoRespawn package. Here we go. I'm going to install that. Now the AutoRespawn package is quite a lightweight package. It comes with one script. So there's this script folder called user spawn. And within that script folder is the spawn user script. So when there's a script folder with the word user at the start of it, that means that it needs to be added to our user template. So we can go over to the drop down here, click on user, then we're going to do entity, create child script folder, then we're going to select the user spawn script folder. So that's now been added. So there's some tweaks we need to do to make sure that this is the script that is spawning our player. If I press F5 now to test the game, you'll notice that I come straight into this free cam mode. And this is because it's currently no longer spawning a player for my user. So there's no character being spawned for my user to control anymore. And this is because the respawn script, the auto respawn script, has now taken control of that respawning. And we need to do a couple of tweaks to our game in order to fully integrate that. So the first one is to go to our player template, and then we need a way to figure out if the player has hit the death Z plane, the abyss, basically. If a player jumps off the side of the cliff, we need to run an event that respawns that player. We need to do that. And we also need to set up the user spawn to spawn ourselves. Let's do that first. So to start with, to spawn a character when the user logs in, rather than that free cam mode we were talking about, just check that checkbox. And you'll find that now it spawns the character for the user at the same place that they would have defaulted to otherwise. What could be quite interesting is to remove the default start point here. And now when I press F5, it will spawn the player at any of the locators in the game. So that might be an interesting way to approach spawning logic, is an open world game where there's random locators everywhere and users could spawn at any one of them. But if you want to determine a specific location, back to the user template, click on the user spawn script folder, and you just set this spawn point to the one that you want. So I'm going to go in the world, drop down in terrain, and the one I want to start with is default start. So with this default start set as the spawn point, now every time I will be spawned at that point, at the default start point, which I've got here, and also it's now set in this user spawn script rather than being set in the default game world game settings thing. So this is now, the user spawn script is now fully in control of our respawning. So you might Now, for example, if I jump off the side here, still being set back to that. So the next thing we need to do is to take control of the player death. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to go over to the player template. We're going to click Entity, Create Child, and we're going to add a script folder. This one's going to be called Player Respawn. And what we want in here is a script. And this is going to be Respawn Player Script. And we need to essentially use the API hook, which gets called when the player hits the death plane, which is essentially a level that you can't go lower than that because you will die. So it's also in my game world, it would be you jump off the side here, and I want you to die at some point. I don't want you to fall forever and ever. That would be boring. So yeah, the Z plane is essentially in there. It's like this far down, about here maybe. I don't know. When you hit that, there's a function that gets called in any script that's attached to the player, and it's called on death plane trigger. And we need to, once we override that function, so once we have written this in one of our scripts attached to the player, you will find that it no longer respawns the player automatically. You just fall forever. So now that it's overriding that, let's use our logic to respawn our user. And this is also that eventually we can respawn our user at the checkpoint that we want to respawn them at. So we will get there. So we've got on death plane trigger, and then all we need to do is do self, and we need to get hold of the character that this script is attached to. Remember, self refers to this script. So we do self get entity, and that now refers to the character, the player that this script is attached to. So this script is on the player here. We're looking at this script here. Self get entity, which will get the player. Then get user will get the user that is controlling that player. And then colon. And then we need to send to scripts. And if I go and have a look at the user spawn script here, I can find that there's this on player died function. That's what I want to call from here. So center script on player died. That wasn't a question. On player died. On player died. Center script on player died, and it's expecting a reference to the player and whatever just killed the player. So I can reference the player self dot get entity. That will get hold of the player, so send them. And they didn't die from anything. They just died from falling forever. So it's nil there. So that should now call this on player died function. So I've saved that. Let's see if I respawn now at the checkpoint. Wait, maybe. Yes. Okay, so notice that it was a lot longer to respawn. And we can change that. If we go to the user spawn, we can change how long it takes to respawn the user using this number here. So maybe it's just 1 second. But the good thing was that now my respawn logic, I'm in total control of that respawn logic. It's happening using the scripts that I've integrated into the game rather than happening automatically. So with that great power of overriding that stuff comes the responsibility of managing the kind of the respawn logic yourself. So it's cool because it means that you can take over that part of the game logic if you want to, or you don't have to. You can just leave it up to the systems that are already in place. So really, yeah, there you go. That's fun. So now that we've done that bit, we can now start to play around with adding checkpoints. So let's go over to this checkpoint. What I want to do here is when you walk on this checkpoint, I want it to save this as the checkpoint to spawn at, not that other one, this one. So to do that, I'm going to add a locator. So we're going to click on the checkpoint, the mesh that I want to use, and then entity, add, nope, create child, locator. We call this checkpoint 2. There we go. And then I need to add a script to this locator. Entity, add script, new script. It's going to be called checkpoint script because it's a checkpoint. Okay. And then scroll down in the entity editor to start to code, do some coding in there. So let's edit that checkpoint script. So let's write a function and then we'll tie in what event calls that function afterwards. So function checkpoint script. The function I'm gonna call it save checkpoint. So this should get called to say this is our checkpoint now. This is where we should respawn now. So that's my function written. What do I need to do here? I need to tell this spawn user script to set the spawn point. So I need to do this. So I'm going to need a reference to the player. So let's put player in there. Now, if this is called from a interact event or a collision event, then it's really easy because whoever interacted or collided with this will be sent automatically. So we can just assume that that's going to be the player coming there. So to do that function, it's really similar to this actually, to this respawn. So maybe I'll just copy this. Copy. It's sort of similar, but self get entity, because this respawn player script was on the player, this self get entity at the beginning refers to the player, whereas this is on a locator in our game world. So that is going to refer to a locator. So we need to change that to be our player. Fortunately, that's there. Player. So that's that there. Player get user center scripts. Now we're not doing the on player died function. We're doing the set spawn function. Let's go and get that. Paste it in there. Paste. Set spawn, and it's after some kind of locator there. So we don't need an extra parameter, that we just need this one, and this is on a locator, so I can actually just do that. Yeah, that should work. Okay, save that. So that should now set the spawn point to checkpoint 2, and I think that's it. Let's try running that and see what happens. So spawning at checkpoint 1, totally cool. That's what I want to do, and then run along the treacherous path. Point 2. Now I've no idea if that's... Oh, I haven't hooked that up to any kind of event. Let's do that before we go any further. So this teleport, I want it so that when a player collides with the teleport, it calls that function on the checkpoint script. So this function isn't getting called at any point ever. So let's make it do that. On collision. So we've got the teleport pad selected, or whatever entity you collide with or interact with. And we just need to set the checkpoint script. So that was attached to this locator. So the entity I'm after, I can just drag that entity on there. It'll automatically select the script for me. And the event I'm after is the save checkpoint event. Okay. And notice all the errors disappear when I do that. So that should be okay. Let's, yeah, it probably is. So now that function is getting called when I collide with the teleport pad. Let's go and collide with the teleport pad. Colliding with the teleport pad. Okay, Geronimo. Okay, and I'm respawning at the correct checkpoint. Let's just double check that. Geronimo. Okay, great. So my respawn logic works, and now I'm being respawned at that checkpoint. So the next step for this would be essentially probably to turn that checkpoint into a template. So you could right click, you could click on that and click template and then create new template, create a checkpoint template for your own game. And then you can put them around your game world wherever you like to make sure that there's always that ability to save progress for your players as they continue their journey through your game. Now, I'm also going to have a look at how we might go about saving our progress with these checkpoints. But for now, this is the checkpoint tutorial. I hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know if you've got any feedback for this tutorial. Let me know. You're welcome to at me in the Discord, or join in the Discord if you run into any difficulties, have any specific questions, or think of some cool other alternative ways to do this, or other cool alternative ways to use this. Who knows? That's part of the fun of making games. Yeah, let me know what you think, and I really look forward to seeing your checkpoint-based games in Crayta.